Welcome to Puzzle with Emilia, that's me. And today we're gonna talk about speed puzzling with a team. So this is kind of like continuation to all the individual pair tips that videos I've been giving. And today this is team tips video. And the marching order for this video is that we're basically going to start straight hopping into the competition mode. So you're gonna go to a competition. The worlds are in just a couple weeks. So we're gonna start like how you need to prepare, what you need to have, what decisions you need to make as a team, how you're gonna start building the puzzle together, the middle game, the end game, what else to consider. And there might be some things that you're actually still able to implement for the world. And then we're gonna actually discuss how to practice with your team. But the thing with the practice is that there is no shortcuts, there is no magic tricks. So, and as I said, we're only 2 weeks away from the Worlds. So there isn't too much you can now do with practicing for 2 weeks. Of course, there's always just some new things to try out, but it won't make a major difference right now. But as said, it's important to practice, and it's always kind of like a long-term project, constant development. So if you're aiming for any team competition for 2025 later this year, you need to start practicing now so you can shine like a bright star next year. And yeah, then we're also gonna go through, because I like to point out mistakes, because then at least, even if you're not implementing anything new, you know kind of like what to try to avoid. So that's how we're gonna go today. I have my notes. Yeah, let's hop into it and let's get started. Alright, so what do you need to have? One really important thing that I don't usually even talk about, because I don't use shorters for anything. But in the Worlds, if you're going to with your team, you do need shorters, or those like papers. Even if you're not really sorting, why you need the sorters is that in the Worlds, those who have been there know very well that the tables there, they have like a tablecloth, and on top of it is this white paper, but it's not usually covering the whole table. I don't know, maybe this year they will put 2 of them, but if they put only 1, it's very small area. So at least to have kind of like those sorters or papers whatsoever, so you can expand your building area, because otherwise the pieces won't slide on the tablecloth. So it's not very good to use it. So that's why sorters, please have those. Then obviously there is decisions to make. One decision is who's gonna make the decision on the classification round, because you're gonna have 4 puzzles in the choose 2. So who's gonna make that decision? And I'm like, okay, we're gonna decide as a team. Well, that might not be your smartest idea. First of all, because you have 4 people, you may end up in if you kind of like go this democratic voting kind of style, you may end up in a situation that you're like, these people are voting for this and these people are voting for this. And I have discussed this so much, but maybe it was in my speed up and not my other videos. But I have like kind of like asked people to analyze puzzles, what is easy, what is hard, and people always seem to go wrong. It's very easy to say after you've done the puzzle, okay, this was hard because, or this was easy because, but when we ask this beforehand, people have done the puzzle, they're usually pretty much wrong. And wrong decision can actually cost you your qualification to the finals. What we have actually done with my team is that I have, for example, printed out those papers that have, for example, 4 puzzles that I know we're going to do eventually, and people have, without discussing or without doing those puzzles first, they have had to put there like which one of those puzzles is fastest, maybe even guess the time that I think this puzzle will take this time. So we are kind of like literally testing out who has the best accuracy of analyzing the puzzles, what is easy and what is hard. So then we will trust that person kind of has like the veto vote or can make the decision for the whole team in the Worlds. So you should definitely do that. Never trust yourself with these decisions. Every time you do a puzzle or you do 2 puzzles, have a vote beforehand. Everybody will vote. And not anonymously, but not without discussing them with each other that, okay, I think this puzzle will be faster. And then you will see in the end who was right. Anyway, one more thing I'm pretty sure I had here. Okay, very important. So when you start, obviously these are here today just because they look nice. These are 500 round puzzles. But very important when you have the bag, so you have already split the roles. How are you gonna start? Who's gonna open the blue bag? Who's gonna pull out the puzzle from there? Who's gonna take the lid and put it here? Who's bringing the stand? and that's very important to start like decide beforehand, because when it goes like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, start, and if you haven't planned this, it's gonna go everybody's trying to pull everything. So just make sure you have that set up beforehand so you get a nice clean start. And then also, how should you start positioning yourself around the table? So we usually in my team, obviously I think most people do it in a way that there is 2 and 2 on each side of the table. Usually the puzzle is built in a way that it's kind of like upside down for 2 people. You could hypothetically do it also this way, but for example in the world, the table is, by the way, it's not 80 as the website says, it's 70 centimeters, and 1000-piece Ravensburgers are 70 centimeters as well, so it's pretty tight to do it sideways. Of course there could hypothetically be a portrait image, I haven't really thought about that, but most people do it obviously this way. And how to place the people, usually if there is, this obviously depends. You need to know what are the strengths and weaknesses of each of your team member. Most likely want to have the people who look at the image, reference image more closer to where you have the reference image, and then you can have the other people further away. But this is just the starting positions. You will change, hopefully, during the puzzle building this multiple times. But with the team puzzling, I honestly have to say that one person should always start with the edges, and it does make sense if you have that kind of like a designated person who always does the edges in the beginning. So once again, you have it as a default strategy, so you don't spend timing starting and then going into this eeny meeny mo, whatever is that song in English, that who is gonna start with the edges, but just have one person who always does that. Same that applies with the pair speed puzzling and individual speed puzzling. You always want to start with the easiest sections. You want to have your fastest. This is the same when when you do the pair. So the faster one should start with the easiest part. So now this is a good question. Okay, so should we just say right away that okay, the fastest person who should have the right to reserve? Okay, I'm gonna start with this because this looks the easiest for me. Kind of like yes and no. You want to make sure the fastest person have the easiest parts, the second fastest has the second easiest parts. This of course applies also what is your strength. Some are better with details, some are better with sky, so that affects. But also you need to remember that the fastest person of your team may not be the best analyzer of what is actually the easiest, even for themselves. Like I sometimes like, okay, I'm gonna start with this looks the easiest part for me, and then I realize, oh my god, I was so wrong. So there might be that you need somebody else in your team who has analyzed, for example, through videos, that what, who, and how like are they actually doing the best. So there might be a different person to tell that to the fastest person that this is, by the way, the easiest part for you. Start with that, if that makes sense. Anyway, fantastic. You got the puzzle started, you're going into it. Okay, what to do in the middle of your speed puzzling journey, or not journey, you're in a competition, let's go. Communication is the key. This applies to everything. But really just, it's not, I think when I say communication, a lot of people are like, okay, yeah, but we like split the task, we tell what we're gonna do next. You need more. You need to like discuss. You can even say that, okay, I'm about to finish my section soon. Hey, this is a good example. Hey, I see a turtle here. I don't know where it is, but I saw a turtle. So then somebody, maybe after 20 minutes, somebody's like, oh, now I see the turtles on the image. Where were the turtles? Somebody said there is a turtle. So you have actually, because when you do a team speed puzzling, you don't really know what the others are doing. It's like the end of when the puzzle is already finished, you actually see like, oh, there was this thing in this puzzle. Oh, and this one, I didn't even see this thing. So you want to really like discuss. It really helps give you the benefit that sometimes you don't even need to look at the image because you've already heard so much like, oh, there is this thing, or there's this thing, or whatever. So just discuss. But obviously the mistake here is to start talking with something else that, even if it's puzzle related, but it's not related to that moment, to that puzzle. We have in a rule kind of in our practice that if somebody starts discussing something else, we remind that this is not related, let's stop it. Because if you start talking about something else, it kind of blocks the other people because they don't want to probably interrupt you, and then they may not say something that was actually related to the puzzle that could have helped you. Okay, then really important thing, I see the best teams do this all the time. Keep changing places. This may feel like totally waste of time, and obviously you shouldn't do this just for the fun of it, but every time, you don't even need to get completely stuck. But if you feel like you're slowing down, you could be more beneficial from somewhere else. You know, this is not my speed level, this is not the ppm, I should be doing this right now. You have 3 other people, I'm pretty sure there's also somebody else who might be getting stuck. And it's magical how it works. You change a place and you just like, you see new pieces, you see a different angle, and usually when you change places, you're out of nowhere, you just start going faster. So I recommend definitely doing that. And also when you practice, you should already practice like how to do it. So you kind of like going simultaneously in the right moment. Of course, never if somebody's having a flow, like don't interrupt that person and change with that person. But yeah, changing places, it's a magic trick, I'll tell you that. And then one good rule also, if you do nothing, do something, because sometimes you indeed get stuck. Nobody's able to change. By do something, I mean, for example, start sorting out, start feeding other people puzzle pieces. You should always know what they're kind of like doing. You need to ask what you're doing. So if you see their pieces, you can try to give them to them. And at the same time, when you may be sorting, you're feeding pieces to other people. You maybe at that point start also seeing like, oh, now I found something I actually want to do next. Or you start finding pieces that you didn't see earlier. But if you just stop and you're like, oh my God, I have to figure out what to do next, I don't know what to do next, you really get stuck. But if you at least start doing something else, then you can also use that time to collect yourself, and then you're more beneficial for your team. And I also have to mention one more thing about changing the positions. Usually what happens, for example, when me and my teammate change places literally on the same side of the table, we start doing this, so we're putting here pieces, and then we get both a little bit stuck. We change places, we start seeing the pieces that we knew that were in the place that we were building beforehand. So what usually happens, we start going a bit over each other, but it's completely fine. That's exactly one of the beauties with it, that then you kind of like, you memorize what you were doing before and you see, oh, this is actually what I was looking. So then you can really just go a little bit over before you start focusing kind of like on the new area. And then obviously the word's kind of like the end game. If you need to do shape sorting, make sure that not the whole team is shape sorting. Like I would say max 1 person, maybe sometimes 2 if there's like the orange puzzle thing. But yeah, don't have like the whole team shape sorting. Of course, when there's still like at least 2 other people still doing the puzzle, just make sure that they know that you're shape sorting. So if they pick up a piece, they cannot find a place for it, they will actually return it directly to the correct place and not kind of like mix it up. Then also in the worlds, for example, if you have 2 puzzles that you have to do in a competition, it's kind of like, it's technically not even the end game, you're just gonna change a puzzle. So in the worlds, it's actually very important that you make sure you get the permission, you get the confirmation from one of the volunteers, the referees, judges, whatever you want to call them, before you change the puzzle. Like don't change the puzzle if you are not sure you have a green light, because that will just get you disqualified and that would be so sad. So sometimes there's a situation that you don't have a referee next to you, then you just have to suck it up and wait that somebody will come there. Have also maybe agree with your team that you have 1 person who is like waving already a little bit before you finish the first puzzle, so you have somebody nearby to take your time, give you the green, and you can change the puzzle. Also, if towards the end you see sometimes there is missing pieces, it might be a factory issue, but also you may have dropped it, leave it to the back. If you see some obvious piece missing, then already before you finish, sometimes it's like very bright color or something, you just see that it's not there. So you may want to have one of your teammates already going off the puzzle beforehand to start looking, is it somewhere on the floor, is it in the bag? Because especially towards the end when you have just like maybe 20 pieces left, 4 people is quite a lot, so you probably do it at the same time even with those 3 people, and the one person will be looking for the piece, instead of that you finish it all 4 together and then everybody will start looking for the piece, and most likely you will have to take the time penalty. Obviously it's not much, but that's how I like to do things, that one person will be kind of like released and be like, go look for it. And then just one thing I want to also mention, because I think last year, I'm not fully confirmed on this, but it seems like looking at the results and the live stream that one team got disqualified because after the time stopped, they continued doing the puzzle. So there is the max time limit and they continued doing the puzzle. I think they thought that they didn't qualify at all, and that's why they just, wanted to finish the puzzle. But actually, if they would have stopped, they would have actually qualified for the finals. But because they kept doing the puzzle after the time ended, they got disqualified. I think it was related to the country rule, how they would have qualified. Not going into details here because I don't know exactly the case. But just make sure when the timer stops, you stop. You don't put anything in there until you have, once again, the judge take the rest of your pieces left and confirm that you're like done. After that, you can finish the puzzle if you wish and if there's time and you get a permission. But other than that, stop doing the puzzle. And also, if you're missing a piece, never do this. I've seen people do this, that they lift the whole puzzle, try to see if it's under it. Don't do it, you may break your puzzle. And for example, if your first puzzle or you break it before the referee sees it, then you may have to start it again. You don't want that. All right, anyway, that was about kind of like from the competition mode. Let's talk a little bit about practicing. So I feel like I'm gonna be a parrot today and just repeat what I always say. As said, this is very generalized tips. If you want more individual tips, more detailed stuff, practices and tricks that are actually literally nowhere on social media else, where you can join my Speed Up program or buy from my new Speed Up shop, where you can actually buy, for example, video analysis for teams, or even have your team for a private coaching session with me to go through more like individual stuff based on your form answers and video analysis and stuff like that. But anyway, practicing together, I think we have been quite long in the situation that most of the teams in the world have never actually practiced together. They are more like, might be even like international teams just coming together. But I think this year we're gonna see more of teams who actually have practiced quite many months together already, and I'm pretty sure it will show. Now I'm gonna suffocate, give me one moment. Okay, so I think actually one of the biggest key, this is also important for pairs and individual, but I think for teams this is even more important, is that you do film when you practice a puzzle. I discussed a bit earlier, I mentioned that, when you do a puzzle and then you finish it and then you're like, oh, there's this and this, I didn't even saw this. Like if you would ask afterwards, okay, who built what area, you probably don't know at least perfectly who did and what. So that's what's really important, to film yourself and then analyze those videos, see what everybody was doing, what could have been done better. You can see there your kind of like mistakes. You can also film with the audio on, so you will also see how you actually communicated. And this is actually very important, because in video with audio you can actually see afterwards if there was some places that you should have communicated, like, oh, I wish if I would have known that, or if I would have seen that, then you can also kind of like do your communication much better for the next time. And as said, you can also buy video analysis from my shop if you wish to have somebody from the outside to take a look what's going on. You can still do it even before the Worlds, to have kind of like these last tips to implement before the competition. But anyway, more to the practice. Okay, smaller puzzles. Have you heard ever me saying that? Do smaller puzzles. Okay, I usually say it for individuals to practice speed, but there is actually another aspect for teams to do smaller puzzles. So for example, 500-piece puzzles. First of all, they're going to be done very quickly. But what it actually demonstrates, it's kind of like, so 500 pieces, it's very little. So what is going to happen, your hands are going to be in everybody's way. There's so little options of what to actually do and what to assemble that most likely you're going to have a more issue because everybody wants to do the same area and you're kind of like overlapping much more, and it's kind of like a cluster, that thing. So what you actually want to demonstrate is that kind of like chaos situation, because that chaos situation also happens with the 1,000-piece puzzles. It usually happens towards the end, especially with puzzles that you have, for some reason your strategy have led you in the situation that in the end you have one small, but like one big small in one place, like a hole, and not like that the pieces are missing from multiple places. So you end up working in a very small area together with that 1,000-piece puzzle. So if you have done before those 500-piece puzzles, even smaller if you want to really go crazy, you actually know what to expect and what may happen. So it's kind of like that situation may come up with also the 1,000-piece puzzle. So that's why you also want to practice it. So you know how is it gonna go. Usually it doesn't go too well. So at least then you know and you can be prepared for it. And then, crazy other news, do bigger puzzles. And I'm guilty as charged. I haven't done any bigger puzzles than 1,000 with my team. I had big plans to do so. I'm not gonna even go through my excuse list why we haven't. We just haven't. It's stupid. Because a lot of teams that I've seen, and also my team, I feel like we have a big endurance, which I also like to call durability issue. We ran out of power. This also happens when we do harder puzzles, but we should definitely like work on our endurance doing bigger puzzles because it's quite important. It really shows. I think if there's gonna be any harder puzzle, anything that takes longer, there might be a situation that a lot of people will have a lower ranking for their team just because they don't have the endurance. They will kind of like give up. What I see in a lot of videos that I analyze for teams is also that people get so tired that you can see that they just stop talking at some point. Like they're so just like over it that they're not even communicating, and it's causing like major issues with the team and their overall time. So yeah, that's why you really need to do those bigger puzzles. And then also, as I already mentioned, do harder puzzles. The big mistake is to just do, first of all, just 1,000-piece puzzles. I think that's what a lot of teams do. And then they tend to choose something that it's a bit easier and nicer. I'm not saying that people choose the easiest puzzle, but especially now that we're in kind of like this time era of like myspeedpuzzling.com and people comparing their times, everybody just wants to be on the top of the leaderboard. So not actually a lot of people are willing to even do those puzzles that they can already know it beforehand. It's gonna take like a decade, but it would be like really good for you. So bigger puzzles and also harder 1,000-piece puzzles you really want to do, because even if you can choose your puzzles in the classification rounds in the worlds, for example, that is not the case in most other team competitions, and also not the case in the final. So you really want to practice those harder puzzles. And then of course you still do want to do also different. Don't do just Ravensburger, do different kind of brands. Not now. If you're going to now to the world, too late for you. As many of these other things that I've now discussed related to the practicing. But definitely do like different brands, different shapes, also like these round 500-piece puzzles. There are a couple of brands who also do round 1,000-piece puzzles. I don't think we're gonna see a round puzzle in the teams this year, but I would not be surprised if Ravensburger, for example, is sponsoring also next year and there will be a round 1,000-piece puzzle. So once again, you don't want to react, you kind of want to practice with your long-term vision, and not like, okay, now there was a round 1,000-piece puzzle, now we will start practicing. You want to be ahead of everybody so you can do your best in every competition you go. And of course, in general, it's always better when you do different kind of puzzles with different kind of varieties. You will see problems. For example, with Ravensburger, you know, obviously this is not the best example, this round one, but you can usually do puzzle islands and then just lift them rather easily. But with some other brands, you may not be able to do that. So you may like figure out new things that, okay, this is a little bit problematic for my team because we're so used to doing this that now if ever we will have a puzzle that doesn't work that way, we're in a trouble. So yeah, a lot of variety over there. And then I said, the most important thing is just to know everybody's weaknesses, strengths, how you work as a team, your dynamics, analyzing your videos, yada 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 yada. This is something I cannot tell you in a very general tips video because I don't know you. There's a lot of different kind of puzzlers, different level puzzlers, different kind of people watching my videos. So you just you know, communicate, discuss with your team, analyze those videos, and also kind of like always remember that when it comes to even pair speed puzzling or team speed puzzling, 1 + 1 is not 2. It can be 3. Or it can be 1.5. It can be basically anything because there's always the room that you're actually much better together than you would be individually summed together, so to say, or that you're actually ending up somehow sabotaging or slowing each other's down. But anyway, that was all today for this. I hope you got some ideas. I always tell, I don't tell any magic tricks. I very rarely tell anything new. I just tell stuff and then it's like, okay, that actually makes sense. Maybe I just haven't thought about that before. But anyway, I hope to see you in Spain. If not, I would love to hear your experience with other team competitions. And if you are indeed coming for the Worlds, comment below that what is your group. They have already assigned the groups. I'm gonna be in group B, I think. I have heard that they have done some reassignments, so you probably want to keep the website eye on so you know actually your final schedule. Excited for the Spain, so little time left. And you know, for my own team, I don't know how it will go. I've been aiming for the podium. I cannot say for sure at this moment that I would be 100% confident about that, but if not this year, then at least we have a really good practice plan also for the next year. Our practice plan is actually like millions of pages. I did it already earlier this year. But yeah, planning is one thing, then executing the practice is also another thing. I'm always not the best of taking my own advice. I'm much more better coaching that way, that it's kind of like do as I say, not as I do. But anyway, love to see you in Spain and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.